Hello friends, welcome to my channel Grow Up to Succeed. Before we begin, take a moment to settle down. Sit comfortably, allow your shoulders to relax and let your body breathing become natural. You don't need to rush, you don't need to prepare. Just be present with what is being said. This is not a lecture, it is a quiet conversation. Truth is often described as difficult, but truth itself is not complicated. What makes truth feel difficult is not its complexity, but its impact. Truth has a way of disturbing the comfort we have carefully built around ourselves. Most people do not avoid truth because they are incapable of understanding it. They avoid truth because truth threatens their stories they live by. These stories give us safety. They tell us who we are, why our life is in this way, and why things cannot be changed right now. Truth does not argue with these stories, it simply exposes them. Illusions feel warm and protective. They whisper that nothing is really wrong, that circumstances are to blame, that time will eventually fix everything. Truth does not offer short comfort. Truth asks direct questions. It asks what we are doing right now, why we repeat the same patterns, and what are we going to gain by avoiding the change. This questioning can feel unsettling. So instead of listening, we postpone. We say we will think about these things later on when life becomes easier, when responsibility will reduce, or when we feel some in a better way we will be more prepared. But life does not pause. It keeps on moving, time moves forward, and avoidance quietly becomes an habit. Consider a simple example from student life. A student might say that they cannot concentrate on studies because the phone is distracting them. On the surface, this sounds reasonable, but the truth looks deeper. Truth suggests that distraction is not created by the phone but by the inner restlessness. The phone becomes an easy escape from boredom, fear of failure, or discomfort with effort. Blaming the phone feels safe than confronting the unease within. This pattern repeats in many areas of life. We blame circumstances, people, society, or fate. While these factors may influence us, truth asks us to see our participation in our own suffering. That is where honesty begins. Truth often feels harsh not because it is cruel, but because it removes the cushion of excuses. When excuses disappear, we feel exposed. That exposure can feel painful at first, but it is also the beginning of clarity. Without clarity, there is confusion, and confusion quietly drains energy. Truth does not demand perfection, it only demands sincerity. It does not ask you to change immediately, it asks you to see clearly first. So take a pause here, not to judge yourself, not to analyze deeply, but simply to notice. Ask yourself gently where you might be avoiding honesty in order to remain comfortable. Let the question stay without forcing an answer. This willingness to look is first step towards living towards apology. Now we move a little deeper into something that quietly shapes most of our thought and actions. This is the idea we carry about ourselves, our self-image. Most of our suffering does not come from situation outside us, but it comes from the image we are trying to protect inside us. Each of us carries a picture of who we think we are. This picture may include ideas like being intelligent, being kind, being successful, being misunderstood, or being unlucky. We may not consciously repeat these labels, but they influence how we react to the world. This picture is what we often call as the ego. Ego is not confidence. Ego is insecurity trying to appear strong. Ego constantly asks, how am I being seen? Am I important enough? Because of this, ego depends on comparison, approval, and recognition. Truth does not support comparison. Truth does not care about image. Truth always asks a very simple question: what is actually happening right now? The question makes the ego uncomfortable. For example, a person may believe that they are very patient and calm by nature, but this belief becomes part of their identity. Then one small inconvenience appears, a delay, a disagreement, or a minor criticism, and suddenly irritation surfaces. Anger shows up, the truth becomes visible. Patience existed only when things were convenient. At that moment, ego feels threatened. Instead of learning, it defeats. It may justify the anger, blame the situation, or blame the other person. Truth remains quiet but clear. For students, self image often becomes tied to marks, grades, or approval. A good score creates confidence, while a poor result creates anxiety. Slowly, learning turns into a way to protect identity rather than a process of understanding. Truth asks whether education is happening for growth or merely for validation. This is uncomfortable to accept but deeply freeing once seen. Ego fears truth because truth dissolves specialness. Ego wants to feel superior or at least significant. Truth does not allow superiority. It does not allow inferiority either. It simply allows reality. Another place ego hides is in moral identity. A person may strongly believe that they are a good ethical or a spiritual individual. When their actions do not match this image, discomfort arises. Instead of observing honestly, ego creates explanations. It says circumstances force the behavior or intentions matter more than actions. Truth, however, looks at facts, not intentions. Truth without apology does not insult the ego, it simply refuses to support the false image. It is important to understand that letting go of ego does not mean becoming weak or passive. It means becoming free from the constant pressure of maintaining an image. When the need to look good reduces, energy becomes available for learning, growth, and awareness. Notice how much effort goes in managing impression, choosing words carefully, hiding mistakes, exaggerating strength, or maximizing weakness. Truth asks, what would happen if this effort is stopped? What would remain if you no longer needed to impress others? The fear that arises at this question is natural. Ego survives on attention. Silence feels like disappearance to it. But silence is not emptiness, silence is space. And that space, clarity begins to appear. So pause here for a moment, observe where you might be more concerned with how you appear than what is actually true. There is no need to condemn yourself, simply noticing is enough. Truth does not attack the ego, it outgrows it. As we move ahead, allow yourself to listen without resistance. Nothing here is meant to judge, it is only an invitation to see more clearly. Beneath many of our action, choices, and relationships, there is a quiet presence shaping everything. That presence is fear. Fear does not always appear dramatic, often it hides behind comfort, attachment, and the need to feel secure. We may not call it fear, but it influences us deeply. Fear of being alone, fear of being unloved, fear of being ordinary, or fear of losing control quietly push us into dependence. Dependence means relying on something outside ourselves to feel complete. This could be a person, a relationship, a success, a recognition, a habit, or even distractions. When we depend, we say without words that without this external support, we cannot be okay. Truth asks us to examine this dependence very gently. Let us consider relationship. Many people say that they cannot live without someone. They call this love. Truth ask a deeper question. Is this love or this is fear of loneliness disguised as attachment? Love does not demand, love does not cling. Love follows from fullness. Attachment, on the other hand, arises from emptiness. It says, I need you to feel the whole. There is difference, and this difference is very difficult to accept because attachment feels intense and meaningful. But intensity is not depth, often it is a fear amplified. When attachment is questioned, discomfort appears. People may feel threatened, defensive, or anxious. This reaction itself reveals how much identity and security we have tried on the bone. Truth without apology does not tell you that leave the relationships. It asks you to look at the quality of your connection you have. Are you sharing your joy? Are you avoiding or you are avoiding your emptiness? Are you together out of freedom or you are out of fear? This pattern extends beyond relationship. A person may depend on constant entertainment to avoid silence or on social media to feel noticed or on success to feel worthy. Each dependence promises comfort but silently increases the insecurity. When the external support weakens, anxiety arises. More we depend, we become more fragile. Truth does not offer quick solutions here, it offers awareness. Awareness reveals that fear grows when we avoid ourselves. When we cannot sit quietly or without our own thought, we look outward for relief. When we cannot face uncertainty, we cling to certainty, even if that certainty is painful. Truth invites you to sit with discomfort instead of escaping it, not to enjoy it but to understand it. When fear is observed without running, it begins to lose power. This does not happen overnight, it happens through small moments of honesty. Choosing to remain present when the urge to distract arises, choosing to observe emotional reactions instead of immediately acting on them, choosing to question dependence instead of justifying them. And awareness depends, something interesting happens. The needness softens, relationship become lightened, expectation reduce, connection become cleaner. Freedom does not maintain isolation. Remember, freedom means relating without fear. So, pause here for a moment, ask yourself where you might be depending on something or someone to feel complete. Do not try to change it immediately, just notice. Noticing is the beginning of release. As we move ahead, keep in mind that this book is not about rejecting society or fighting the tradition. It is about understanding how deeply your thinking has been shaped often without our awareness. From the moment we were born and we are surrounded by beliefs, these beliefs becomes more family, culture, education, religion, and social expectations. Over time, they become so familiar that we stop seeing them as belief and start treating them as facts. Truth without apology begins when we ask simple but very powerful question. Are these ideas truly understood by me, or have they been simply adopted? Most people do not consciously choose their values. They absorb them. They learn from the success should look like, what failure means, how good a life is defined, and what is considered respectable or shameful. Once absorbed, these ideas quietly guide decisions. Consider a common definition of success. Society often tells us that success means money, status, stability, and recognition. Many people chase these goals sincerely, believing that they will bring peace. Yet, even after achieving them, the restlessness they still same they feel the as same as early they were having. Truth asks whether the promise itself was examined or simply accepted. For students, this conditioning begins early. Certain careers are praised, others are dismissed. Certain paths are considered safe and others are risky. Slowly, curiosity is replaced by comfortability. Learning turns into performance. Life becomes a checklist. Questioning these beliefs is not rebellion, it is intelligence. Truth does not ask you to disrespect your parents, teachers, or culture. It asks you to look at benefits honestly and whether they are actually aligned with your inner reality. If beliefs is true, it will stand firm, understand your question. If these are false, holding on to it will only create a conflict. Another area of conditioning is lies in morality and spirituality. Many people follow rituals, rules, customs without understanding their purpose and need. They may feel righteous on the surface, yet remain fearful, judgmental, or restless inside. Truth points us that in order to obedience without knowing from inner side of that perspective, it is known as hypocrisy. Conditioning also teaches us how to suppress uncomfortable questions. We are often told not to think too much or not to ask certain questions and not to disturb established norms. Over time, curiosity fades and acceptance becomes an habit. Truth without apology restores the same curiosity that has been lost. It invites you to ask why you believe what you believe, and why you desire what you desire, and why you fear what you fear. This inquiry is not meant to create conflict without others, it means to create a clarity from inside. As clarity grows, something shifts. You may still live within society, follow respect, traditions, but you do it very consciously. You are no longer driven blindly. You choose whatever you are doing, and you are well aware of that. This awareness brings a quiet confidence. You no longer need to argue, convince, or defend constantly. You simply live according to what you see clearly. So, pause here for a moment, reflect on belief you have never questioned. It could be about success, relationship, spirituality, or self worth. Just notice it. You do not need to change it today. Awareness itself is a powerful beginning. Truth does not break you away from life, it brings you closer. Until now, we have been looking through ego, fear, attachment, and conditioning. Now we come to something very important, responsibility. For many people, word responsibility feels heavy, sound like burden, pressure, or blame. But in constant truth, responsibility means something very different. It means ownership. Responsibility means recognizing that while we may not control everything that happens to us, we are always responsible for how we respond to that situation. This realization is not meant to create guilt, but it is meant to restore the power. Blame weakens, responsibility strengthens. When you blame others, situation for fate or our sufferings, we unknowingly give the control. We wait for external world to change. When we take responsibility, attention turns inwards. We take real change is possible. Consider emotional pain. When someone says they hurt me, it feels true on the surface, but truth asks deeper question. Why did their action have such power over my inner state? Why expectation, attachment, or dependence was operating within me? This question is not meant to excuse harmful behavior. It is meant to free you from inner captivity. Responsibility does not mean tolerating injustice. It means understanding your inner reaction so they no longer dominate you. This understanding leads to choice. Most people believe that they are choosing freely. In reality, many choices are reactions driven by fear, desire, habit, or conditioning. Truth reveals how little freedom exists when actions are compulsive. Inner freedom begins when you can pause before reacting. That pause is powerful. In that pause, you may notice urge to defend, to please, to escape, or to attack. Instead of immediately reacting, you observe. Observation loses compulsion. Slowly, choice appears. Freedom is not doing whatever you want, freedom is not being pushed around by what you want. When fear dictates action, there is no freedom. When desire dictates action, there is no freedom. Freedom arises when awareness guides action. This freedom expresses itself in a small, ordinary moments, choosing silence instead of distraction, choosing honesty instead of convince, choosing understanding instead of reaction. These choices may not look very dramatic, but they actually reshape life very quietly. As a responsible citizen, you have to understand that responsibility deepens when excuses fade. Not because you force them away, because they no longer make sense to you. You stop waiting for a world to change before you change. You act from clarity, not hope. This clarity brings dignity. You no longer feel like a victim of circumstances. You feel grounded, steady, and present. Pause here for a moment. Notice where you might be blaming instead of understanding. See if you can take responsibility without self criticism. Responsibility does not punish, it liberates. Truth without apology always leads to freedom, not outward freedom first, but the inner freedom first. When truth is understood very intellectually, it feels very interesting. When truth is lived, it feels quiet. Many seekers imagine that living with truth means becoming extraordinary, fearless, or always confident. In reality, living with truth often looks very simple. It looks like less noise inside, less conflict, and less pretending. Truth does not make life very perfect, but it makes life very honest. One of the clearest signs that truth is being lived is comfort with silence. Silence does not feel empty anymore, it feels complete. You no longer rush to fill every moment with these words, thoughts, or distraction. In silence, clarity appears naturally. Clarity does not mean having all the answers. It means knowing what is false, unnecessary, or driven by fear. When confusion drops, action becomes very simple. You may still face challenges, but inner resistance reduces. Stop fighting reality. Instead of asking why this is happening to me, you will start asking what this is trying to teach me. This shift changes everything. Living with truth always changes how you relate to others. You listen more, you argue less, not because you suppress yourself, but because you no longer need validation. Your worth is not up for debate. Compassion grows naturally. When you see your own conditioning clearly, you begin to see it in others as well. Judgment softens, patience increases. Truth does not isolate you, it connects you more deeply without attachment. Another important aspect of living with truth is acceptance of uncertainty. The mind constantly seeks guarantees. Truth reveals that life offers none. And strangely, this realization brings peace to us. When you start demanding certainty, fear reduces. You meet life as it comes, not as you wish it should be. Truth also simplifies ambition. You still act, create, and contribute. But the hunger for recognition fades. Work becomes an expression, not a compensation. There is joy in simplicity, not excitement, pleasure, but a steady sense of well being. This is not an achievement, this is not something to show, this is something which is actually felt. Truth without apology does not ask you to follow a path, it asks you to seek clarity in whatever you are doing. Sing clearly enough so that your actions align on their own. As we close this series, remember this: you do not need to become someone else. You only need to stop running from what is already here. Truth is not harsh, the resistance to is truth. So sit with yourself sometimes without labels, without goals, without judgment, and that stillness something real emerges. Thank you for listening, thank you for your attention, and most importantly, thank you for your willingness to look inward.